early October. It's a bit late, but we have a lot of beans, so I'm going to be harvesting these. Well, I say a lot. I wish I had more, but there are a fair bit. I wish I had planted more. You can see them. They're really nice. These are nice and dried out, so these should be good. Got a bunch more in here and there, and somewhere back there as well, over there. So yeah, let's pick them all off. Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Out here on a very sunny day in the garden, standing next to some of the corn here, or more accurately kneeling next to some of the corn. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to plant some beans. Got a bunch in this bag over here. These are the variety that grew well for us last year. You can see they're these little like mottled or spotted, I don't even know, whatever, red beans. These did really well for us. I got a bunch already growing in little containers and paper tubes. I'm going to plant those out, but I figured I may as well just plant some directly in the ground next to the corn as well. So I've pulled back some of the mulch here. You can see our nice moist soil down there, even though we haven't been watering. And I'm just going to take one bean and just put it in there, lightly cover it with the mulch, and I'm going to do that for a bunch of the corn here. And then, you know, we should still have plenty of space in between for planting the other little beans out. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So I'm pretty excited about this. I really wanted to plant even more beans, and I think I probably should have started them like way sooner. But I'm still hopeful that they'll, you know, come to a full harvest. But we will see. So there we go. Not much, but really nice. And definitely looking forward to planting a lot more of these next year. I'm going to make a little like enclosure or whatever you call it, like a little thing for them to run up on. I'm going to just try to do a lot more, and I'm going to plant a lot more between corn and squash as well. But really excited about these, and I'll make a nice soup or something out of this. And I'm going to use up the ones I had from last year because I hadn't even used those yet. They've just been in a jar in the pantry. So yeah, let's get to talking about the point of the video. Okay, so what I want to talk about in this video, the main thing I want to focus on is kind of like one of the main allegations that a lot of the anti-vegans kind of bring up often in debates. I've been spending a lot of time this past week on Twitter and getting really kind of in detail, in-depth debating with some people. And one of the big things that they always bring up is the naturalness of the vegan diet, and also just kind of like this this idea that you can only grow food in certain areas of the world, and that you have to have like a steady production of food, you know, all through the year. And people just seem to forget the idea that you can store food and preserve food, you know, in totally natural ways that have been being done for like thousands of years. And in fact, you can argue probably even longer than that, because animals have been doing it since forever. Non-human animals store food all the time, like squirrels and, you know, what have you, storing nuts and whatever. So I've already done a video where I covered a lot of these things, and if you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to check it out. It was one that I did a while back. It was called Veganic Growing: An Answer to February, Message to Joey Carbstrong and Other Vegan Activists. So check that out if you haven't seen it. But basically in there I talk a lot about some of the, you know, the misconceptions people have, like I just told you guys about, and what can be done, you know, to kind of work against those, or you know, negate some of those kinds of hardships, like if you're in a northern climate. But then, you know, today I wanted to show you guys kind of like how easy it is to grow beans as well. You know, last year I had really great squash. The year before that I had even more squash. Butternut squash and other kinds of things like that can be stored for really long periods of time. I mean, I had a butternut squash almost close to a year, just in the basement, no refrigeration. You know, potatoes can store for months. Nuts can store for like a really long time. The dried beans can store for well over a year. there's just so many kind of food options that you can store. I mean, look at pasta; it'll last forever, basically. Rice, other grains, as long as you keep them dry and you haven't processed them yet, they'll be fine for like just huge amounts of time. And it's one of the things that I really want to focus on in the future, like with our garden, is to really be able to get to the point that we're producing more of our own food, and also producing food that is more calorie dense and more of a staple food, as opposed to just like the tomatoes and other things that are really fun to grow and really nice to have. I want to be able to grow things more kind of like calorie dense and rich, like potatoes and the squash and things like that. And maybe even do some peanuts or stuff like that. I want to do more nut trees and preserve more things like fruits and jams and fruit preserves and stuff like that, so that I do have food available throughout the year from our own garden, and basically have to rely on store-bought options less and less. Now, I don't have any really like preconceived notions of how much of my own food I can grow, but I would just like to make it as high as I can within reason, and then just not be as reliant upon store-bought options. And I think that's really just kind of what I wanted to focus on, and encourage everybody that you can do the same. I mean, you can start small, you can start doing whatever you feel comfortable growing, and you don't need to be thinking it's all or nothing, like I can make all of my own food or not. I'm going to do a separate video about that at some other point, but really I just wanted to kind of like make it really obvious that there are lots of food options that you can grow in a regular kind of temperate zone, even in northern climate, foods that are completely natural and will store in a natural way. You don't have to ship them around the world, you don't have to freeze them, you don't have to like use constant energy to preserve them or have them available to you. Root cellars have been around since forever. I mean, people have been living in caves like probably for as long as people have been around, and you can store food in cool, dry locations for really long periods of time. It just depends on the food. I had apples in the basement well into the new year after last fall, and they were completely fine. They got a little bit dried up, a little bit shriveled, but they were still fine. There was no mold, no problems. So even lots of fruit can store without any kind of like kind of like energy inputs or anything like that. Just kept it in the basement. So there's lots of stuff like that, and I encourage everybody to get out there and start investigating and do your own kind of planting and gardening. And that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do really want to focus on the garden next year. Hopefully our house will be done by the time the growing season really kind of starts going, and we'll be able to focus a lot more on planting and growing a lot more of our own food. So stick with us if you want to see it. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll be making more videos about the garden and the more food options that are really natural and can last through the winter. So that's it. Hope to see you guys in the next one. See you. Bye. And I just wanted to show you guys what the beans look like. They're really pretty. I like them.